I'm ranking the last 10 World Series. This was not an easy list to make, so have fun debating in the comments. By far the worst World Series of the last 10 years was 2023, the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers. The baseball world was so torn on this matchup going in. There was a big contingent of people who thought it was the best thing ever to see no big market popular teams in the World Series and see these two small markets go at it. Other fans were commenting things about how nobody's going to watch this and how they really do not care. And ultimately, it got terrible ratings, as we'd expect, but that's not what I'm rating based off. The reality is that this was not a very entertaining series, a 5-game easy win for the Texas Rangers. Game 1 was a classic, but it was all downhill from there. Number 9, 2020 World Series between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Los Angeles Dodgers. And this is definitely number 9. There's no chance I would put it any higher, even though I don't look back at the series as being bad. For being in a bubble, it was a pretty entertaining series, although really the only memorable game was that Game 4 where Tampa Bay walked it off to tie the series on that crazy play. But ultimately, it was in a bubble, and it was the Rays. It doesn't compare to the top 8. Now, none of these top 8 are bad. I think we've had overall good World Series in the last 10 years. But coming in at number 8 is the 2018 Dodgers-Red Sox World Series. Boston was the favorite, and they got it done in 5, ultimately. They cruised in the first 2 at Fenway. Game 3 and 4 in Los Angeles were absolute thrillers, though, so that's why it's hard to put it down at 8. But ultimately, Boston won Game 5 pretty easily on the road to wrap things up. At number 7, I got the 2015 World Series between the Mets and the Royals. Game 1 of this series, an absolute classic. Alex Gordon home run in the 9th to tie it up, and then they walk it off in the 14th on a sac fly. The home teams dominated Games 2 and Game 3. The Royals came back in Game 4. And in Game 5, the Royals came back and won it in 12 innings to win the World Series. This would have been a much better series if the Mets had walked off in extra innings in that Game 5 instead of the Royals busted open to 7-2 and win it on the road. If the Mets sent that thing back to Kansas City, then we might be talking about an all-time World Series. Number 6, we got the 2021 series between the Atlanta Braves and the Houston Astros. The fact that the Braves won this one was definitely a good thing. The whole baseball world was certainly rooting for Freddie Freeman and the Atlanta Braves at that time, because remember, the Braves were an underdog team that year, unlike many of these recent years. The weekend portion of the series, games 3 to 5 in Atlanta, particularly 4 and 5, were entertaining baseball games. But the reason this one's down at 6 is because games 1, 2, and 6 down in Houston, none of those were that fun. Solaire's Game 6 homer was one epic moment in Houston, though. At 5, Phillies Astros 2022. I've always looked at this one as being a little better than the Braves and the Astros. You didn't have the great fact that the underdog team from the NL East actually took down the Astros this time, though, because ultimately Houston did get it done. But hey, Philly was up 2-1 in this series. It was a good series. You had that thrilling game number 1. You had the Phillies shifting home and hitting 5 or 6 home runs off McCullers Jr. in Game 3. You had the Astros throw a no-hitter there in game number 4 or 5. Game 4 was the no-hitter, that's right. And then Game 5, the Astros won 3-2. And then Game 6, you had the big Jordan homer in Houston. Up at number 4, I've got to put the 2024 World Series between the Yankees and the Dodgers. Even though it only went 5 games, this was a great series for Major League Baseball. And that's coming from a Yankees fan. It was so fun to see two behemoths go at it in the series finally after some years where there was at least one big-time underdog team in the series. New York, LA, we had that thrilling Game 1. Game 2, the Yankees made it interesting at the end after the Dodgers had those home runs early. Game 3 in the Bronx was the only not good game. Game 4 was actually a close game for a while. It was 5-4 Yankees pretty late. They eventually blew it open and kept it alive. Game number 5 then was obviously a classic, not in the favor that I wanted. It was a tragic night for a Yankee fan like me, but very entertaining series. The baseball world actually had its eyes closely on this series, unlike last year. And then the top 3 are the series that all went to 7 games. At number 3, the 2019 Nationals-Astros series. The road team won all 7. That is really, really crazy that you could say. However, it's not necessarily a good thing because part of the entertainment is seeing teams carry with their home momentum and crowds going crazy. We didn't get that much in the 2019 series, but the fact that the Nationals, that fun Nationals team, won all 4 games in Houston with a 20-year-old Juan Soto hitting homers off Verlander and Cole, that was very, very special. And although the final was 6-2, that was a pretty entertaining game number 7. Houston led 2-0 to the 7th, and then Howie Kendrick's foul pole home run completely flipped the script. At number 2, now these top 2, going to cause a lot of debate, you know what I'm saying? But I've got 2016 at number 2, Cubs and Indians 2016 World Series. Obviously an absolutely legendary game number 7 between the Indians' comeback and the rain delay and the Cubs winning it to capture their first title in over 100 years. I mean, it was obviously special. We all know that. The only reason it's number 2 and not number 1 is because the first 6 games really weren't that entertaining of baseball games. That's comparatively speaking to number 1, 2017. The very next year, after the Cubs year, we had the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Dodgers in what's the absolute best series that I can remember. These games were absolutely wild, and it went 7. As Joe Buck said after Game 6, this series too good to end in 6. Game 7 tomorrow night. The one downside of the series was Game 7 being an easy 5-1 Astros win with not much drama. But oh my goodness, Game 2 and Game 5 were the craziest of the games. Game 5, the greatest baseball game any of us have ever witnessed. Go watch the highlights of it. It's hard to argue with this being number 1 after you watch that.